This week on Sundays with Sully, we are on the road again. We are in North Carolina. We are down here in Charlotte on Lake Norman, and we are talking about Locmarine and their vessel monitoring and telematics system. And we're going to go ahead and do an install on something a little bit different this week. So let's go check it out, guys. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sundays with Sully. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that like and subscribe and share button down there on the bottom of YouTube at Navtronics to stay up to date and in the know with the latest happenings in the marine industry. Every Sunday, like 98% of Sundays at 10 a.m., we drop a new episode of Sundays with Sully. This week, what are we talking about, guys? We are talking Locmarine. Now, we've highlighted them in a previous episode when we were down at IBEX. We caught up with Eric and we talked about their system and how everything they're monitoring. It's a very simple, easy to install for an end user or for somebody in the shop to do. This is a great setup. So I thought, you know what, we're down here. I'm doing a little bit of racing this weekend on the old short bus right here, and that is a prime candidate for this. This boat is a 1967, but we still want to keep tabs on it, guys. So we're going to be able to monitor things like battery voltage, bilge pump, high water, security, shore power. We have all of that functionality on there in a very easy and convenient to use package. So let's hop on. Let's get going on this install, guys. All right, guys. So like I was talking about with the Locmarine, you guys go ahead. It's going to come in a really easy, convenient to use package. Everything you need to install this is right here, unless you want to add a couple of things like a high water alarm. That's what we've got this for right here. And that's just a random off the shelf bilge pump sensor on there. So we go ahead, we open this up, and they've really kind of done a really nice presentation here, guys. We've actually got the monitoring unit itself right here, and that's it. That's all there is to this. And then we have the wiring harness as well. And that wiring harness here, everything is nicely labeled. We're going to go over that as we do the install here, but it's all nice 16 gauge wire. So it's going to be really easy to make our connections. And then we just have the plug that's going to go into the bottom. And then up here, we've got all the instructions, and we've got even so much as even a nice little baggie right here with all of the butt connectors, the screws, everything you need to install. Like I said, short of a high water float switch is in here, guys. So without further ado, we're going to tear into it and get this thing going. All right, guys, so like I said, everything is ready to go on this. We just need to find the best home for it on this boat. This boat, really old, but also really simple. So we can go ahead and we can open up some of our bilges here, and we can start to look around and see what is going to be the best place to put all of these things. Now, on this boat in particular, back aft, we've got a deeper keel sump on here. That's where our bilge pump's going to go. So we know we can already tag in off of that to get our bilge pump sensor. Midship here, we've gone ahead. We actually have the engine battery, our house battery, and all that good stuff is right there. And then we actually have an open spot in front of that area right here. And it looks like it's going to be the perfect spot to go ahead and get this guy mounted up right down in there. Just going to make sure she's going to fit and that we're going to have good wire runs. The wire run's actually going to be really short on this. Probably not even going to have to, I might have to extend it a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get the power hooked up to this, run that over to our house battery. We're going to make sure that it is properly fused by ABYC standards. And the really nice thing is that's also included in this package. So let's go ahead and speed this up, and I'm going to go ahead and get this wire run over there and get this thing rolling. All right, guys, so now I'm going to have to run a wire from that unit back to the bilge pump in the aft there, so I'm going to have to get an actual extra piece of wire here. So go ahead, and we are going to run that so we can connect that into our main harness. Now, guys, I've got obviously, we've got it hooked up to power, but we've got the fuse disconnected, so we're not dealing with live wires here. Go ahead, pull this one right through here. Run on back down to the next one here. And then we'll just go ahead, and now we can make our connection on here. So let's go ahead and make that up.
Yeah, A few moments later.
All right, guys, so now obviously we've got an extra length of wire here when I'm making my wire run. I like to make sure things are serviceable. So we're doing this whole install so that it can be plugged in right here. So we're not reaching down into the bilge to do any of our service. Just some considerations to give while you're doing the install. So now I'm going to go ahead. We'll get this one cut down to a workable length here and get a heat shrink on there and keep rolling along. All right, so now that portion of this is done. Now we're going to move along to go ahead and putting the high water sensor in here. Like I talked about, guys, a couple of minutes ago, it's just going to be any off-the-shelf float switch is going to work. In our case, we've got a Rule Super Float switch right here that's going to do the job really nice and really pretty simple, actually, guys. And this one's really easy. We're just creating a circuit with this. We've got 2 wires on the actual harness down there, and then we've got these 2 wires off of this. We're going to go ahead and connect them, and all we're doing is we're creating, just like with the bilge pump, when this turns on, you are opening and or closing the circuit depending on which state it is in. So that's all we're going to do. Is I'm going to go ahead and get this wired in, and then we're just going to mount that right down in the bilge, so that way, you know, if they get a high water sensor, bam, kicks up, lets you know, hey, you got a high water. Now we know if the bilge pump's been cycling, and we're keeping track of the high water, and we're keeping track of the battery as well. So let's move on to that. All right, guys, so we've got the high water float switch mounted down in the bilge. So we're going to take those gray wires, connect to the 2 gray wires on the unit itself. And now that's going to be it. That's all we need for our high water alert. So go ahead. I've got my butt connectors already on there. Go ahead, we pull this guy out. Slam him right on home. All right, so now that is gone ahead. That's connected down in there. We've got our bilge pump connected in there, and we have our battery connected onto here as well. Now, if we want to, we can go ahead and do shore power, but this is a pretty simple boat. It's just got a straight hardwire into a battery charger. We don't have any other AC outlets or anything really to simply tie in, so we're going to do that at a later date so we can monitor our shore power and know if the boat, you know, circuit trips or something like that for as far as the shore power goes for our battery charger. But we've got that functionality right there as well for us. And I think the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and I'm going to do a wire run, and we're going to connect the security sensor. All right, guys, so now we are going to do the security sensor. It's very simple. Like I said, it's just a reed switch on here that is hard wired in. This is going to be using a little bit smaller wire, but the nice thing is, guys, they include the extra wire for the run. So now I'm going to go ahead. I got to reposition the camera so you guys can see. I'm actually going to put it on the hatch boards right here. We're going to make the run down, go into the bilge, and bring it right back on up into the unit itself. So let's go ahead and dig on in.
Much later.
All right, guys. That was probably the hardest part of this whole install, was doing the wire run, and that was all just because of this boat and how we had to run the wires in here through the bilge. Took way longer than it probably should have. But other than that, this has been a really simple, really straightforward install. We've got our high water sensor installed. We've gone ahead, we've teed into our bilge pump. We've got our battery connection made. And now after these 2 connections here with the orange and yellow wire here to these 2 wires, we'll have our reed sensor on here. Then we can go ahead, we're going to slap a fuse on it. We'll clean up the wiring here, and we'll show you guys the finished install and what the app looks like. All right, guys, that is a wrap on the Locmarine install. We've gone ahead, we've got everything all wired up, buttoned up, taken care of, and the app is online here. So if I do my editing right, that's going to go ahead and pop up in the corner here, and you're going to see we've got our bilge pump. The alerts are enabled, so if the bilge pump goes on, we're going to get an alert. As I mentioned, we didn't do the shore power, so the shore power is not on. We've got our battery. It's going to let us know what our battery voltage is. Security, that was that sensor that kind of fought us. That's on there. Our high water and our backup power is going to let us know everything. We can come in here, go into high water, and it's going to let us know about the history and what's been going on there for our high water alerts. We go in, we can open up any one of these also for security here. And you'll see that security now is active and ready to go. And then we come in here and we can do things like see where the boat is located with the geofence, and we can go ahead and set up a geofence perimeter on here. If the boat goes outside of that perimeter, the kids take the boat out, you will get an alert to your phone as well. Plus, you get the local weather here. It's saying it's 63, blowing about 17, and I don't know if you guys can hear it in the background, but it's definitely cranking. So, that's it. I want to say a huge thank you to Jim for letting us come down here and do this install on board his boat. If you haven't done it yet, you've watched this far, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below to stay up to date and in the know. The latest happenings in the marine industry at Navtronics, and we'll see you guys next week with something cool. Peace.